system. You're listening to
your entire life that there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. Do you know what I'm talking about? The Matrix. The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window, or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That you are a slave in you. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Turtle Island News with Tracy Kennedy. So, let's go back at it. Let's just look at the difference between... yes, Meg is from Canada. Yes, she is. Let's look at the difference between what NASA, for instance, is saying and what the alternative physicists are saying. Physicists, geologists, everyone else who, well, for the most part, are getting killed, believe it or not. So, origin of the solar system, NASA. the solar system formed about, at one time, all of it, about 4.5 billion years ago. No new planets or moons have been formed since. Only Jupiter and the Sun were in the original solar system. That's what everyone else is saying. And all the planets and the moons were captured and adapted into the solar system one by one at later times. Each new object formed under unique conditions and were large comets, like the cosmic vacuum cleaner kind of thing. They were sucked in here till they settled to their final orbits. As new members arrive, they will encounter the currently existing planets and the moon and the moons, of course, in dynamic game of celestial billiards. So they crash and bang into each other. Now, the circular orbits of planets. NASA. The orbits formed in a nice circular pattern at the time of formation. The planets and the moon have not altered from these since then. Everybody else. As the comets are drawn into the solar system and are captured and encounter other planets, two effects tend to reduce the comet orbit and bring it into circular motion. First, they will encounter other planets and either gain or lose energy. The primary effect that will reduce the orbit of a planet and new planetary member is tail drag, caused by the pull of the tail as the comet draws in vast amounts of matter relative to its size. Now, the huge comet Hale-Bopp is in its orbit, has its orbit reduced from 4,200 years to 2,650 years in one passage of the sun. So the dirty snowball jetting concept could not accept, it can't account for this amazing change in orbit here. It can't. Now, comets in general. This is NASA. This is the mainstream guys. Comets are dirty snowballs that are formed at extremely, or approximately the same time as the rest of all the planets. Since standard theory requires huge solar wind emanating from the sun to account for the spin of the sun, these comets somehow have been moved out to a location where we cannot detect them, called the Oort cloud. Occasionally, objects pass the Oort cloud, disturb the comets in their orbits, and then they come towards our sun. These snowballs melt when near the sun, and the solar wind sweeps their tails out away from the sun. Comets are getting smaller and go away eventually, or leave a small asteroid in its orbit. NASA states that only if one of these tiny nuclei hits the Earth directly can it harm the Earth. Okay, other people. Comets are asteroidal or larger rocky objects, which ignite a complex electrical discharge of the solar capacitor. When they enter the sun's electrical region, that is produced and maintained by an excess of current of protons in the solar wind, comets are drawn in the tail material and therefore get larger as they move on their orbits in their solar system. Although most comets are small, some can be large or even planetary size, much like the one that was dragging a small moon, perhaps. Now, if so, they can cause extreme damage to all the existing planets and moons as they work their way in their eventual eventually anyway, stable orbits. They do not have to directly hit an existing planet to cause any damage. In fact, extreme levels of damage can be caused by a myriad of effects, and again, action at a distance. Now the Sun. And the Sun, we have to say they are incredibly far off here. NASA. The Sun has nuclear fission engine in its core, ignited originally in the birth of the solar system by gravitational pressure, that it heats it to a glowing ball of 6,000 degrees, and it will burn for billions of years at a steady rate. The Sun is electrically neutral. It is not affected by external conditions, especially not comets, even though we keep seeing it looking like it's being affected. Okay, new theory. The Sun's nuclear fusion is taking place in the upper atmosphere. Nuclear fusion reaction is ignited on an ongoing basis by pinched electrical discharges in its violent, stormy atmosphere. The Sun's temperature actually cools as one measures deeper, which is why it looks darker in the pictures the further in you're seeing. Now eventually hitting a solid planetary type core, and this is confirmed over and over again by X-ray measurements and the experiments performed by many Russian scientists, although they stopped mentioning X-rays now. The Sun is dynamic and changes rapidly to external conditions, especially comets, which are forming an electrical connection with the Sun, as we do, can rapidly and significantly alter solar output, as we have seen. Large solar flares can occur in response to electrical interactions with comets, as we have seen. Additionally, special conditions such as electrical alignments, such as that very powerful magnetar that I've talked about, and you can look on my page, just scroll down. All the latest info on those ones are there too. All of these things will cause a discharge of our solar capacitor. That's what it is, which in turn causes currents to flow to the Sun, resulting in an enhanced solar flaring and, again, energy output. Now the electrical nature of the Sun. NASA still says neutral, which has been proven again and again and again wrong. The Sun is left with a net negative anyway, charge, as it continually ejects a large composite of streamers, primary protons in the solar wind. This builds up, sustains the solar capacitor with the positive anode far beyond the orbit of Pluto, where there is a large ionized cloud of dust and gases. The capacitor is discharged by the asteroids and larger comet nuclei that enter the solar system. This capacitor is what powers and controls the electrical nature of the solar system. Magnetic effects are secondary effects to the electrical plasma currents that flow as a result of this power source. The Sun produces thousands of times more energy in the form of electrical energy as it does in the form of light energy. The Earth is buffeted from this by a large magnetic field. We only notice changes here where the electrical field and current flows are altered. When the Sun hits us, or basically comets that pass by, planets in circular orbits also constantly discharge the solar capacitor, to a lesser degree, but still. The comets which are on elliptical orbits, which cut greater angles through the solar capacitor, they cause this great